It's Friday. Happy Friday. I want to talk to you guys about Pastor Keion. And I want to do it differently than most because I don't want to do it from a place of judgment. I want to do it from a place of reflection. So I prayed on it and I talked to God about it a few times because I know it's controversial, but I speak truth regardless. I don't really care about that stuff. I want to, I guess, start at the beginning. I watched the Cam Newton and the pastor talking about seeing his father, who was a pastor, and him beginning preaching at 14, and seeing his father for years, going to his father's church and not knowing it was his dad. And he made a statement that said a lot. And he said that his father was an amazing preacher, but sucked as a father. He wasn't there. He didn't buy them anything. He didn't show up in any way in his kid's life. But he was an amazing preacher. He had, 5 churches, own apartment complexes in the 80s and this and that. And my thought and what I want to reference is that you cannot be a perfect preacher and not be a perfect man of God. You cannot take care of your congregation and not take care of your kids. So he might have been a great speaker. He might have sold stories, but integrity was not there. And integrity is a big foundation, part of foundation when it comes to religion and really walking that walk with God. So that he wasn't an amazing preacher. He was a false leader. How do you lead people and you're not leading your kids? You can't. You cannot not be an active parent and want to be active in the whole world. They just don't go together. And I think that platform, that foundation right there, that brokenness right there, opened the door to a lot of more broken generational issues. Because then he started preaching at 14, because that was the one thing his dad did teach him and put him on big platforms to get bigger congregations and bigger this. And it's almost like hustling the church in a way. Because you are gaining this and you're giving this, but the authenticity has to be there. Everything, the foundation has to be there. And that should have started with your dad. And the way he still views his dad as being those things shows that he hasn't grown through what he needed to go through to be able to come to people and tell them how to break those generational cycles where things like that occur in their life, and they grow through what they go through and they realize that this is wrong. This wasn't right. He couldn't have been a great pastor because he was not a great father. He couldn't have been this. He was a great speaker. I'm sure he got up there. He put on a great show. I'm sure of it. But God isn't here for shows. When you hit that pulpit, it's no longer supposed to be a show. And then it went on to him talking about giving to the poor. And I just laughed because he said that there is no blessings connected in helping the poor. Charity does not bring wealth. Only tithes does. And, he told them to read their Bible. And I could bring up Bible verses to reflect what I'm saying, but I feel like that's part of the problem because people twist the Bible verse to relate to what they're saying, but they're not hearing God. So I'm not going to pull up a word in the Bible. Sometimes you just got to sit back and hear God. You can know Bible all day long. You can read Bible over and over. But if you're not hearing the word of God, if it's not hitting you right, then it doesn't matter what you read in the Bible, because it will always fit your narrative. We are here for service, the service of one another. Period. That means helping everyone, poor, people in need. How do you pour into a church that feels like they don't help? You shouldn't help the poor. Church is supposed to be the foundation of community. Your community is supposed to look like everyone, poor, rich. It's supposed to be a combination, because that is what community is. And I was wondering where all the big churches was with the storms, and I had even made a video about it. But I guess, I realized he had went through his own storm, and his own church was destroyed. And between 3 of his churches, I think they said it was almost $20 million in damage from Hurricane Beryl. And he got on the pulpit and he said God had showed him in 21 days, people donate $2,100 to get $4.4 million to rebuild the church. And I don't know if God showed him that. I can't say that God did or didn't. I pray that he's not lying on God's name. But I ask you to ask yourself, why was all your churches attacked during the storm? Why did your church go through that? Are you doing what's right by your people? Because them storms could have went around your church. When the Hurricane Helene hit, my aunt asked me, should my nephew leave Florida? And I was so scared, but I heard, touch not my anointed. And I seen the picture of a tornado rolling and then go around a house and then hit other houses. See, when God is somewhere, he can miss places and hit other places. And that could have happened for this church, for these churches, but they're tore up. So take time to reflect on what because you're leading people. You're leading people. You're guiding people. And 22,000 people is what it said, 22,000 people. And he said that he apologized for thinking that people can afford $2,100 in 21 days. And that showed a disconnect in your congregation, because you don't know who your people are. Why would you feel like they could afford that? Are you speaking to everybody in your church? Do you know their struggles? Sometimes you got to get back grounded. And I just worry that because he started at 14 and he had the legs up, the lift, that you hadn't gone through that grounding. But God is here balancing out a lot of things. And if you don't want to keep going through the cycle of God balancing things out in your life for you, you really have to come to terms with how you lead your people. Because you are a representative of him wherever you go. And I see them say that he shouldn't have been on Cam Newton's show. It's secular, blah, blah, blah. You can go anywhere. You're supposed to go on secular shows because you're supposed to bring God's people to him. You have to go to the strip. If you at the strip club, in front of the strip club, bringing people to God, you go wherever you need to go to bring people to God. So that's not it. That's not it. It's just knowing your foundation and then portraying it correctly. So I pray you find whatever